Thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Education workshop today, October 15th. We do have regular business to occur before the workshop. And would everyone please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance to the
flag
flag
of the
of the
United
United
States
States
of America
and
and to the
to the
republic
republic
for which
it
it stands,
stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with
liberty,
and
justice.
justice for all.
Thank you. And can I have a motion, please, to move from executive session into regular business?
So moved.
I think that was Sue and Linda. It's so
Sure.
hard to talk.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And we will need a motion to amend the agenda. We have a couple liaison items to add after the regular business portion before the workshop begins. So can we have a motion
So
to
moved.
add
Second.
Maria and Sue? Thank you. You guys are right there. Okay, and with that, we can get underway. Brian will lead us through the external audit.
Thank you very much. So our external audit, there's a lot of documents for you guys to look at there, and you also get a bound copy. Those are on the way from the auditor to each one of you individually, and one to Cindy for your reference. That'll come, but you have digital copies right now. So what I try to do is just distill down the 67 pages of the financial statements and hit the highlights and the key points for you. Just wanted to go over some of those quickly tonight for you. So some of the highlights, we saw an increase in some fund balances. This audit really, there's some impacts due to COVID. Go through a little financial analysis of where our reserves were, what our unassigned fund balance is. Really kind of focus on food service a little bit and the capital fund. I want to highlight those for you. And then what the auditors, what their findings were and what we're required to do for corrective action. So a couple points that the audit, that to tease out of the financial statements, what happened is some of the COVID impacts on financials. And on the revenue side, all told, sales tax cost, we lost about $300,000 from the projection that we initially had. And we lost about $100,000 in the shutdown in facilities rentals when we did a year-to-year comparison once the books were closed. In addition, many of you are aware, because we talked about this, state aid was withheld in 1920 to the tune of $750,000 was, and I'll use quotes, withheld, because I don't think we'll ever see that again. So this actually happened after the auditors had come out for a few days and been on site and really, we were 98% of the way done with closing out everything. And then the aid payments that they had counted on us getting and we were counting on were withheld after the fact. So it took a little time to work through that. We need a couple extra weeks. They had to come back out and verify a few things now in regards to that. So the revenues had a big impact on the financials. And then on the expenditure side, some of the impacts that they pointed out to us were obviously our unemployment costs were up tremendously for that last quarter of the 1920 school year. Saw a lot more additional overtime. So when we called in employees to come work, many of their labor contracts on the operational side required overtime. You saw a lot more PPE supplies, so we saw that. And then saw some increased expenditures for technology needs when we went to remote. So those are the COVID impacts on the financial statements that we saw. So financial analysis, we were really being aggressive in our investment strategy. And I know we had talked about that last year. So even still with some of the last quarter falling out, our reserves alone garnered almost $1 million in interest across all of them. So without doing anything other than Lori and myself moving money around and constantly shopping to see which banks had the best, we almost got to $1 million in reserve interest. And had the COVID pandemic not hit, we would have far exceeded that. So that was something I have not seen, having interest rates like that in my 10 years as a business administrator. So that's a highlight that came with the reserves. And then our unassigned fund balance, the 4% that everybody looks to, you see, we were at 357. So a touch under, not by too much. And then you saw the difference between 18-19, 19-20, a little over $300,000 increase in that unassigned, but still below the 4% legal threshold. Really teasing into some of the analysis, if you see things that pop up, these are the two big ones that are going to really pop out at you through the financial statements. First one overall was the food service loss. And a lot of, obviously we knew participation was
Can everybody hear Brian? Everybody's frozen. Maybe it's just my computer. All right. Zoom apparently had a brain fart. It happened during the budget vote count too, but it was a little quicker in coming back.
Paul, are you at district offices as well?
Yes.
Okay.
So that about wraps up the financials. Any questions?
Oh, we can't take all your fun.
I know. All right, let me get back to where.
Ryan, that was so fast. It's like I didn't even know you'd finished.
Like, wow, did I fall asleep?
Well, there's some pretty good lightning in the village right now. So, all right. So financial analysis, I think. So food service had a tremendous loss, which was not surprising. But once we had our final numbers and got the final claim numbers from the state, interesting to know the state claims were actually withheld too at 20%. At 20%. Although it was minimal, it was still interesting that they withheld from food service claims for the state aid there. So currently food service, you'll see, is running a structural deficit. Now, the good part about that is the current USDA model, where everybody is eating free, is going to wipe that out this year. Where our participation at the elementary with that is generally, it's about 3 times, taking a sample of the month of September, 3 times greater than normal. So we're seeing some improvement there. So we'd see that to be wiped out in this fiscal year. But this is not uncommon that Tom Zuber, our auditor, mentioned to the audit committee. And then the other huge number I think that's going to really stick out in the financial statements is how do we have a negative in the capital fund? And that is all due to our borrowing schedule. You know, we have projects ongoing. We limit the amount of times we borrow because every time we borrow, we got to pay interest. Excuse me, not interest. We have to pay attorney fees, we have to pay fiscal fees, we have to pay for Standard & Poor's rating when we go to borrow. So we try to minimize that. So you'll see a negative, but it's because we have the cash flow to be able to pay for the project before borrowing is necessary. So overall, we did have a net gain in our general fund, in our fund balances of about 2.5 million. So we were trending in the right direction. Could have been better, or it could have been worse. But we did fairly well considering some of the things we lost out on. So the findings that the auditors came up for, that you'll see a corrective action plan for, the major one was the school lunch program. Significant operating losses. They know we incurred a deficit, and they're aware we're making systemic changes to address that. So that's one of the first findings. The other corrective action they want us to take is adjust how we record WonderCare program revenues. So parents sign up in the spring, they pay ahead. Many take advantage of the discount for paying ahead in full, but that's in the spring of the previous fiscal year. So this is just an accounting technicality they want us to change. And we mark those program revenues as deferred revenue because it's paid ahead. So just a simple accounting change moving forward. And then some other items, they're not really findings, but they wanted to make us aware of. They'll work with the audit committee and us moving forward. There's going to be modification to what we call agency funds, and that's how we account for scholarship. We have many scholarship funds that we hold across the district. How we account for those and how we're going to account for extra class revenues at the 4 secondary is going to change. So we're going to get more information on that later in the fall, early winter, on what those changes and what that'll impact be moving forward. And then they applauded us for what they had found, the 3 things they found the previous year, and that we changed those all. We have a cyber risk management process going on. We have a federal grants procedures manual, and board had correctively authorized all the reserve transfers this summer for review. So we fixed those 3 problems, and now really the focus is a couple things, and really making sure the school lunch program gets back on its feet. So that is the financials in a nutshell. Summation. It's a large document. We'll be posting this, sending it once the board takes action on it tonight. We'll post this to the website, and we will send this off to the State Education Department, and the Office of the State Comptroller also receive these.
I have a question about the aquaponics program. Is
Sure.
there an impact to that? Is that still able to function in its best capacity? Because I know it was a helpful and valued resource for the kids in terms of lunches.
We did do some, to-go meals, Tammy, salads and things like that. What we ended up doing is we were actually in the drive-up program in the spring. We're actually giving out just heads of lettuce to families as well. So it kind of was a little pause. I'd have to check. I don't think we've had a class come in yet. Usually we have some of the chem classes come over and they do some water testing and things like that. I don't think we've gotten that off the ground, up and running yet this year, because time is at a premium. So it's one of the nice to haves and to do in class. And back when I was teaching, I know I would probably take some of this stuff and put it aside and have to focus on some other things. But we're still utilizing it in the meals that are being prepared. The lettuce doesn't hold up as well, especially at the elementary and the grab and goes to go home. So, we want it to be a fresh product. So we're focusing more, utilizing that in the secondaries.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. Anybody else? Any questions? Okay, seeing none, then can we have a motion, please, to accept the external audit report as presented?
So moved.
In a second, Linda.
Sue, and second by Linda. Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
It's difficult to do this by Zoom. Okay, thank you all. Can't see everybody. Moving on to the treasurer's report from July 2020.
All right. So this is the new treasurer's report format. It's laid out a little bit differently. When I can find it in this huge PDF document. Getting there. All right, here we go. So it's a little different. So I gave you a little executive summary, showing July is a minimal revenue growth. We do get our large BOCES aid payment, but it's withheld at 20% for 1920. School lunch revenues for summer program, you won't see any because it's lagging by 2 months. July and August, we did do about an 8-week program for drive up at the back of Schrader for summer program. What you notice on the expenditure side, payable payments, those are prior year expenses. It's salaries from the end of June. So anybody that's on a 2-week lag, kind of that June 16th to June 30th period, that'll show up in July, but it's a payable because it actually counts back, but it shows up in July. You'll see the payrolls are lower. The spending freeze impact that we instituted right away. You'll see small amounts spent on non-personnel, but a lot of bills haven't even come in yet, especially our energy bills. From a cash flow perspective, there's a form in there, a sheet that shows you where we are with cash flow. We call the summer months our lean because we don't get tax revenue, we don't get state aid. But we have a positive cash flow, and that's what we use. You could use that to see. We use that for our capital fund to pay for summer construction. And then just some miscellaneous things. Federal funds reimbursement requests go out at the end of summer. You'll notice reserve balances are going to grow by interest every month. And you notice we actually have no investments. It's blank. That investment page in the treasurer's report is blank. 2 things to note there. We have aggressively moved money around, but we were fearful when July hit of what would get withheld. So all of our investments that came due on June 30th, we pulled them and did not reinvest it. We left it in just our general checking account for peace of mind, per se, because we just weren't sure what the state was going to do and didn't want to lock up anything. So you notice in July that we have no investments because we didn't do anything, but we're back out there investing money now that we know we have our tax revenue and have a clearer picture. But for the month of July, we weren't sure what was going to happen. So it's just broken down a little bit more specific than the previous treasurer's reports. You'll see every fund that the district operates and all of our checking accounts, kind of with a subtotal, checks in transit, the aquatic center programs, what's going on there. School lunch, you'll see they got money going out because they're buying stuff for the summer program. But like I said, no money coming in. Capital fund, you see a lot of expenses going out. A lot of disbursements for the multitude of projects we have going on right now. You see the $69.5 million project, still wrapping up the 2016 project here at Spry and Buildings and Grounds as well. And then our federal funds with what's going on in our title grants, teacher center, UPK, broke it all out for you guys to see in a little bit more specificity moving forward, where some of our reserve accounts, what's going on there. Trust and agency, this is referencing what the auditors are telling us. This is going to change for next year and how we deal with accounts here. A lot of it has to do with health insurance payments as well. Our payroll accounts, you'll see everything. And then we're going to give you a monthly running balance of all of our accounts, general fund, school lunch, capital, to show you where our cash status is and what we're doing to invest. And then a overview of all of our reserves, so you can see the interest month to month that we accrue on our reserves as well. And then one of the last pages here you'll see is where are we investing. As you can see for July, we're not investing anywhere because of how I previously said we just withheld on investing and kept everything in our general checking accounts as to not lock money up that we might need to access during the lean summer months. So that is the new treasurer's report. Feel free if there's a question that pops up, shoot me an email. I could easily walk you through it, or if there's questions now, I know it's a little bit different, but it is more robust than our previous treasurer's reports. It's a lot more detailed, gives you a lot more information. It gives you a much better overview of where our cash flow is, what's happening in all the accounts, all the funds that the district has moving forward.
Excellent, thank you. And it's too bad Mike is not here this evening because he was
Very
waiting.
true. Yeah. The irony was not lost when Mike would not be
Thank
able
you
to.
for accommodating that request and all your work behind this. Open it up to questions. Anyone?
I can just say I might ask for hard copies because the writing is awfully small on the computer.
Yeah, it's the scanned copy has to go landscape, and we'll fix that next time.
Oh, okay. That'd be good if it was a little bit bigger.
Yep.
Thank you.
We'll go landscape with that next time.
Thanks.
Anything else? Anyone? Okay, then can we have a motion, please, to accept the treasurer's report for July 2020?
So
So
moved.
made by Mike and a second by Maria. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Moving on to the cooperative bid.
Yeah, so we jumped on Monroe 2 BOCES bid for just anything you could think of that has to do with pandemic supplies, PPE, hand sanitizer, cleaning supplies. We all banded together to do a cooperative bid on this. So we are looking to approve this bid. You'll see the estimated order of what we think we're going to order is just roughly under $30,000 from the vendors that won the bids.
Okay, you didn't have any issues with supply chain or securing what you needed?
So the first part is just winning the bid, and they gave us assurances that they would be able to meet the estimated supplies that we put forward. And so if they don't, they lose the bid, and we're able to go to whoever we want.
Okay.
On the PPE side, Tammy, we're not seeing much supply chain disruption anymore. The supply chain disruption we're seeing is more on, and Brian Zimmer could talk about that a little bit more, is on the electronics side and sourcing parts and equipment right now. But that is even starting to loosen up a little bit. That was the last 3 months was more of a concern than the PPE.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from anyone?
I'll make a motion to approve the bids.
Okay, and a second?
Second it.
Maria, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, excellent. Brian, thank you for all your work on this.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
My pleasure.
So now moving on, we amended the agenda to add a liaison report so that Maria can add information that she'd like to share from the legislative committee.
Thank you. Sue's going to also join me doing this. The virtual Area 2 Resolutions Committee meeting took place on October 3rd, and the following resolutions were not supported. Number 2, 3, and 15, which related to special education, because members thought that they added burdens to parents. And they did not support number 7 on kindergarten funding, number 10 on tobacco products, and number 23 on a 5-year renewable 10-year process. And the thing is that the attendees said that some of these could become unfunded mandates, and that it could be, added to NYSBA's priority later on. Go ahead, Sue. Thank you.
Okay. Also at the legislative meeting, they finalized the priorities for the year, and they're pretty much standard funding at both the state and federal levels, relief for COVID-19 costs, somehow getting some kind of reimbursements or aid for those, building relationships with new legislators, depending on how the elections come out in November, mandate relief, which is always an issue, and exploring ways to mitigate the digital divide. So those will be the focuses of the legislative committee. In addition, they updated position papers. And for those of you who aren't familiar with them, what happens is collectively members of Monroe County School Board Association help write papers to help keep board members informed in a more detailed way on some of the issues. And the current position papers that were updated are the bus driver shortage, role of regents and SED for public education, impact of staff shortages on school districts. And they're also looking for volunteers to help work on the mandate relief update paper. In November, a few members of Monroe County School Board are going to be meeting with the regents, and they have several questions that they're going to ask. And they're also wanting to know if any of us have any questions. So if you can think of anything that you want to ask the State Education Department, just let Maria and I know, or you can send them and we'll forward them to Sherry Johnson, or else you can just send them directly to her as well. But they relate, the questions that they've come up with so far are around workforce availability, filling vacancies in the State Ed Department because they are so short-staffed, talking about or finding out what they mean by reimagining schools. They're looking for more flexibility and guidance regarding online learning. And what about state testing in the spring? Those kinds of questions are the ones that they have identified. But if you have anything else you want to add, just let Maria and I know, or I know. And then also at our last board meeting, we had a little bit of a discussion on NYSBA, New York State School Board Association, and their and how they work. And actually, Michael would be very interested in this topic because he's the one who raised the questions. But I'll give him a call and let him know. So NYSBA has 4 people working in government relations, and they're really the lobby staff, and they lobby on behalf of the whole organization and for New York State. And just so you know, in contrast to that, Monroe County School Board is an advocacy group. They don't have the same designation, and they are not officially a lobby group like NYSBA is. Like I said, they have 4 people. Generally, 2 people are in Albany at any given time, advocating, lobbying, talking to people. But they have their major issues are pretty much consistent with Monroe County School Board. But this year, they're specifically local control, funding at the state and federal level, and mandate relief. And then where the resolutions fit in, I mean, they have, this time there's like 20 of them that potentially could be approved. And what happens with those is everyone's familiar with them and they pass them out to representatives and such, but they're really reinforced and focused on when the opportunities arise, when another group might bring up the same topic or something that's related, then they jump in with these resolutions and these asks, if you will, the things that we are looking for. When there are comparable issues, if that makes sense to you. So that's how the resolutions work. So their primary is the funding and the things that we, tend to think of as important. And then the resolutions are like a second tier, if you will. And that's how it works. And I didn't know exactly how it worked either, so it was good for me to find out. Does anybody have any questions?
No, it sounds like their focus is all the issues the challenges that are presented because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that everybody would be informed and rally behind those.
Right. And there is we just got a newspaper today. It was the October 12 issue of On Board. And they have a report, a delegate report, and it has all the activities of the Government Relations Committee or group of people. If you're really interested in that, there's a lot of stuff that they've been doing. So you get an idea of the kinds of things that they do.
If you do have questions that you want to submit, the next meeting is on November 11th, or excuse me, November 4th. So you make sure that you get your questions in to us or to Sherry before that. Thanks.
Thank you both.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now the regular business portion of the meeting is over and we're moving in to the workshop portion.